Okay, Michael, I don't know if you got it or not, but I'm going to do a little video here for you to show you how I did it. Um, I hope I can get it all on camera. We're going to pretend that this is the voice coil that the spider is glued to. I have my cutout hole. My shape of my spider is not completely round, but you get the drift here. So you have the oil. You take the old spider off, and you're left with a voice coil and the cone going up from this. So this is bottom. This is where the coil gap is, and this up here is where the cone starts and go up. Okay. So after you have taken the old spider off, you basically get a new spider that is the same diameter and the same diameter inside. It can maybe be a little bit too big on the outside. You can trim the outside a little bit, but not too much. What I did was, I didn't use scissors back then. I used a knife, but just to make it easy, what I did was I cut the spider in half like this. What I then did was, you know, the voice coil was still going in and out of the gap. What I did was I started with one half and I slid it in like that. And this is your guide. This one is your guide. So what you do now is you glue this one to the coil where the old one was glued, okay? That's your first step. And make sure that that one tacks or dries quite a bit before you start moving it around with the other one. So I say leave it for 2 or 3 hours before you do anything else. Your next thing, what you want to do is take the second half of the spider that you cut in half and you slide that in from the other side. When I did this back in the day, someone told me, well, why don't you use 2 spiders and put a half in here and a half in there so they overlap? Well, then you create way too much stiffness, and you can in fact create sagginess of the spider. And you don't want to add too much weight to this. So when this one half that you already glued to the cone is tacked and glued, you slide the other one in. Don't glue it to the cone yet, because you would need to, sorry, my voice coil is a little bit flimsy. You need to be able to lift it up and down here, okay? This one is your guide. So this one will steer this one where on the cone and the voice coil it will go. So what you do is you slide it in like that, and you try to mix it up and fix it up and center it as best as you can. Then you have 4 other pieces. You need 2 on the bottom and 2 on top. When I did mine, I did double on the bottom, so I had 2 more. I had 6. But at least minimum you have 1 on top on each side and 1 on bottom on each side where you cut it. And you start with the bottom ones. So this one is still loose on the outside, it's just that it's glued to the voice coil, so you can get under it up here and over on the other side. But this one is completely loose, so you can bend it up and down like this. So what you do is you slid the first one under so it comes halfway under both of them, okay? Do a trial run first, make sure you have them all lined up. Then you attach glue. You can use the same glue as you normally glue the spider to the frame with. It's a strong glue, and I would recommend you use that. I used 2 on the bottom just to make sure that I didn't create a weakness where I cut them, okay? And I used, back then, I don't know where you can buy it now, but I used the type of surround that you use on, it's called cloth surround, and I cut that to pieces, and I got one long piece that fitted, and I got another one on the bottom that fitted, so I got 2 on each side on the bottom. That's how I did it. And once you have glued one or two on the bottom on each side of the spiders, like that. Then you have created a good point. This is where, when you have one on each side on the bottom, or two, you double layer it. When that has dried for another 2 or 3 hours, that's when you can come back in and glue this half of the spider to the voice coil and cone on this side, because then you already have a guide. It will be true. What you then do, the last thing you do, make sure that on the underside that the pieces you put on follows the grooves, okay? All the grooves. Try and get all the air out. Use a spatula or something that is small enough to get up there and kind of like rub it in the grooves. Then do the same on the top, but on top you use one on each side. And you glue it with the same type of glue, and you use a spatula to kind of like get it down into the grooves, so you create one whole piece. When you've done that, I would leave it for overnight to dry. I would not touch it or play with it anymore. It's glued to the voice coil, and these are glued on the bottom and the top, and you are creating one new spider. The next day you come back, and since it's already glued around the coil, then you glue the outer edges to the frame. And you know how long that takes. You let it dry and all that stuff. What is important here? Well, take it a little bit easy in the beginning. Let the spider work itself in, because of course when you apply glue in the middle of the spider, there will be some stiffness points here. That type of glue needs to be worked with a little bit. So don't go bananas 500 watts right off the bat. Play with it for a week or so and let it work itself in. And like I said, I was lucky, I think, and I don't know, I had never done it before. I just did it back then, and it worked. So that's one thing you can do. The only thing I would be cautioned about is, of course, you're creating some more weight to the spider. So a little bit of sagginess you maybe will see, but not too much, because they're using very lightweight cloths around, instead of using another spider that you cut up and put into the grooves and glue it to it. That would create too much weight. Do you change the parameters of the driver? Yes, slightly you do. I would say you lose about 10 to 12% power handling, just because of you add some weight and maybe a little bit of a weakness to the spider. So instead of running 400 or 500 watts on the driver, I would probably run 350. You probably lose a little bit of X mass, and the TNS parameters maybe change a little bit, but not too much. But it's a trial and error, you know. You have nothing to lose. That's the thing here. So I hope this video explained to you how I did it. That's the best I can do. But I hope it helps you. Bye.